Hello, everybody. Let's see if I can get this so you can see me. I'm your host, Jennifer A. Whitaker, here with Dawes Coffee Chat. We have news for you, which is that these podcasts are being made public on television and going to be released. So I want to start this lecture. We're going to transition into lectures instead of you watching me write. And that way, whether you see this on TV or you see this on my YouTube channel, you will be able to learn through a lecture everything that I basically have revealed in all the books you've seen me write so far, plus any other books I write going forward. This is supposed to be an educational approach. Um, I'm not a therapist, but I'm a mentor in mental health. I mentor people, and I'm working on my MS in psychology, later going for my doctorate in psychology upon completing my master's, my MS in psychology. And so I have background in research and as well as dealing with these myself, that I give you my stories in the books as examples of what you can learn from to understand the concept. Because ultimately, the ultimate thing is in everything I do, I'm an educator. I'm here to educate you and bring it to you through these different avenues for those who cannot afford tutoring or other forms of education, but yet you can still obtain the same knowledge in some way that is within your reach financially, as well as technology and other forms. That's why we have the Jennifer A. Whitaker show being produced and soon to be streamed in the coming month here in 2025 in the summer. But it's also why I'm transitioning these, where you watch me write the book, into a live lecture where you can learn it if maybe you don't like to follow along in reading or you're more of a visual learner. With that said, we're going to start with the edited version. That's my final draft of Overcoming PTSD. We're going to start with day one today, and it's right now, June of 2025. And this is when we're starting on the beginning. I started writing October 14th of 2024, and that was when I began my journey. So now I'm going to guide you through the very beginning. That's as early as when you are still going through the hardships, the trials, the different episodes of fight and flight, and it may be as early as you're newly diagnosed with PTSD, or it may be at the point that you have struggled with it, and maybe you didn't even know that healing was an option. Maybe you don't know how to heal. But either way, this is at whatever state that you have not started healing, but you're ready for it. I'm going to guide you, and the whole thing starts with the attempt to overcome PTSD to get you the best quality of life with a lot less episodes of fight or flight, or feeling misunderstood, or getting rid of the traumas that are impairing you from things you would otherwise enjoy. And I'll even teach you later on through this series about how to rediscover and reconnect with what you enjoy to become a pleasure again. I have my own stories where this happened to me as well. Okay, so we're going to start. Okay, man, you didn't read my writing, can you? Okay, might be right with the. I wrote with a pen on white paper. Let's see if I can write it. With a market, it might be thicker and easier to read. Okay, can everybody see it clearly? Let's see. I don't see a way to zoom in. Okay, so this is first step is understand the situation. The situation here that I gave in my example was that my knowledge of basic chemistry and the function of the different parts of our brain suggests a correlation between lack of nutrition, pain, mood, and limited mobility, illnesses, and other negative experiences that can resolve by supplying the body with nutrients it needs. So, first thing is, a lot of people, especially Americans, a lot of us, but there's a movement to go towards healthy, but a lot of us eat what we love that tastes good, but we don't look at what's nutritionally best for our body. And often we think that what's nutritionally best for our body is what looks and feels good. But often when it comes to PTSD, we can trigger depression because we eat comfort food. And when we eat comfort food, we often gain weight because they're typically carbs or sweets or something else that's unhealthy and causes a weight problem. They have excessive amounts of calories. Anyways, well, we have to get to a healthy diet, cutting out the high carbs and have the healthy carbs like wheat bread instead of, uh, you know, flour tortillas or flour-based bread. That's the white bread, and get in with the wheats and whole grains and other things, but cut out potatoes and other stuff that's starches that are not the whole grains. The first thing is understanding that that's the situation. Well, if we're not taking care of our body and we're not eating things that have nutrients, fruits, vegetables, meat that's grilled or pan fried or something that's maybe baked, but it's not fried with a bunch of carbs on it, like crust, and neither is it covered with a bunch of fat like butter. It's a huge chunk of butter. Use olive oil or some other oil that you prefer that's healthy to cook the food instead of butter. That's the first thing for understanding. We want to eat nutritious because our mind is unstable, and part of it has to do with the lack of nutrients, and that we're giving it things that are not healthy. That basically the understanding is if we get in a mood, whether it's fight or flight, often we go for the starch or caffeine or something else that we crave to get us out and through that moment. But in the long term, yes, it does get us out and we quote survive and get through that. But it's detriment to our overall health to cause diabetes and weight problems, heart problems, and all kinds of other medical things. So when we're often going through traumas and we are develop PTSD, we have fight and flight plus the trauma, and the trauma causes emotional eating as well as a fight and flight. That's how we're trying to cope with the moment to try to survive and get through it. But the thing is, we believe when we're in these states that the other people are the problem and we're the only one that really has everything right in our head. But that's totally not true at all. We have things unbalanced, but it can start with one, understanding the situation. Okay, your body needs health. Another situation, you need to heal from the trauma. Uh, and there's even the basic understanding of the situation, which is there is a way to heal from the trauma. It's not just simply in nutrients, but for your brain to be able to go through the process, you need a healthy diet to give it the nutrients it can do so your brain and body can process the traumas and let go of it. That's where we're going in this whole series. We're trying to let go of the trauma. We're trying to let go of the hardship. We're trying to let go of the stress, anxiety, fight, flight, and our whole bunch of sense of misery at the early stages of being diagnosed with PTSD, or maybe you just have the episodes and you have the unstable emotions. People don't understand you, but you haven't gone to a doctor to really get labeled. And if you're labeled, that's step one before understanding the situation. But also, it's part of it too. If you don't know that you have PTSD, you don't know to watch stuff like this to get educated on how to overcome it. Until you know what the something is you're dealing with, you can't do much to find ways and resources to get past it and to heal from it. And so, all those are different factors of understanding the situation. I gave a scenario in mind. Um, about many Americans have unhealthy diets by choice. And I even admitted I am not innocent 100% myself, as I went through many dark years of depression, and the only coping tool I had that I was allowed to use was eating. So for me, I was emotionally eating buffalo chicken in any form I could get it, wings, tenders, nuggets, any form I could get it. And that has plenty of fried. It's fried. It's got a lot of butter. It's even often deep fried. It's just got extra amounts of fat than just what's fried in a frying pan. So it's not healthy for me at all. But for those of you that have seen my shows here on YouTube, in the prior years, this is give or take the summer of 25, and I've been having Joel's Coffee Chat podcast since October 24th of 21. It was something I started during the pandemic. But if you go in the prior videos, you can see where I had a bigger weight problem, and I had some other things we'll talk about, which has to do with neglecting ourselves, a lack of self-care. So we have to start with taking care of ourselves with healthy eating, understanding the situation that's what's our condition, understanding you have to come up with first did you have PTSD before you can go find ways to overcome it. And you do need to work with some kind of professional. Like I said, I'm in a school working on my MS in psychology. Even though I have already written 6 books at this point, between um, this one that was book number 3, and I started in August of 2024 writing books about how to overcome different mental health conditions and how to heal. But this is now the summer of 25. I've written all those. I didn't start school until 25, but I had already done research for my own conditions, trying to heal myself. And I got through those by writing and telling you what I discovered. That's how I got myself through it. And yes, I did have a therapist that would help me understand my research, and she coached me. But she even admitted herself 90% of what I do and what I've done to heal myself was my own doing, whether it was the research, it was the writing, it was the journaling, it was talking to friends, it was talking to professionals, it was seeing a doctor for different medical conditions that I gained because of the trauma causing me to neglect myself in certain ways. Like I neglected myself even with hygiene and other things like that were visually apparent. Like you looked at my prior videos and you saw how yellow my teeth used to be, and you could tell how Don Week said time not brushing them. It's horrible, but that's how detrimental PTSD can be, and that's how detrimental mine was. And that's where I am one of you everyday people, if not one of the worst situations. That I get you. We all went there. We all were there. We understand, and now let's work together to heal and get through the process of understanding where we are, what we need to do first, the basic things to get started, and then we'll continue on with the next thing. Um, I go on to say with eating unhealthy foods, sometimes it has to do with what I did with buffalo tenders. It has to do with or buffalo chicken of any kind. That has to do with a certain type of food in excess. I had excess amounts of protein and carbs in my body, and that caused me to have a toxic ammonia level, which ammonia is where the liver has too much protein, and the protein that's stuck in the liver that keeps converting to ammonia. So too much protein produced too much ammonia. And my aunt died, I don't know how many years ago, um, from a ammonia level at 250. But give or take 15 years ago, when I moved home from college and my mom took me under her wing, I had a 350 ammonia level. I was the one that survived at a 350. She was the one that died at a 250 score of ammonia. So I had more ammonia, but I survived. She had less, that was still detrimental and way beyond an excessive, that's not healthy at all. But somehow I was fortunate enough to be the one to survive. I had the worst case and the most ammonia, there's the most toxicity. It actually is a form of poison in the body that my liver was producing because of eating too much protein and carb, but nothing else. And that's where I go to say that healthy eating is a step one. But in order to deal with healthy eating, we have to also deal with our emotions at the same time. We can't do one before the other because it's kind of like the chicken or the egg, because your traumas and other symptoms you have help make you want to eat those comfort foods. But if you don't deal with the trauma or other unhealthy moods and conditions, then you can't often stop yourself from craving that certain unhealthy food, or just that certain food in excess, like chicken is healthy, but going on to carry on. So that's why I say you need to work with with your doctors and your providers to get all of your medical things attended, and not just this one. And as you get all the other medical attended, you'll get this one understood, and you can deal with it from different angles. Between I dealt with a dietitian to get the healthy eating, I dealt with a therapist to get guidance on what to journal and write and what to research that were the different steps. I saw a psychiatrist to get um, medication to stabilize me through the time. And I had a lot of other medical doctors that had to do with concussions and other things I had. But the root of them was PTSD, anxiety, and depression were the three things I struggled with in mental health that caused all these other mental health conditions I struggled with. And they caused the medical stuff I had going on. So that's where with dealing with the mental health, we're getting down to the root of it and not just surfing the surface, okay? So once we get past that, the idea is many people are aware of low-income families and individuals not being able to afford nutritious food. Yet too often, those who easily can afford food willingly make poor decisions on their food choices without any difficulty affording healthy food. Both factors play into why America has been a massively unhealthy culture of people and growing obesity nationwide, impacting a larger percentage of our population year after year. Okay, so this isn't just a matter of something that's situation bound and caused because of financial reasons, that has to do with people that can't afford it, because people that do have enough money to afford the unhealthy and the healthy willingly choose to get what's excessive of something good or just unhealthy. Mine with the chicken was quote unquote good, it's chicken, but the fried and the grease and the fat, it was unhealthy, which is kind of debatable, right? It's better than candy, better than dessert. But still, that in whatever form of unhealthy, it impacts both those who feel forced that way because they can't afford nutritious foods, and those who willingly choose that way because they go by taste and comfort over health. So that's where I started with day one in the book. So going forward, in the next day, I had a quiet whisper. All right, flight mode. So to me, when went into flight, I thought I was depressed. I couldn't tell flight from depression at the time. Why? Because my personal experience was when something uncomfortable happened, it caused an uncomfortable situation, my mind would tell me in a quiet whisper, I want to die. Okay, that's not necessarily suicidal. That's what they call passive suicidal. That is a desire without any true willing or desire to do it to yourself, but a passive wish. You're wishing some supernatural force will do it, or nature of some kind, but you yourself are not causing any harm to your own body or life. Okay, that's actually part of flight. That's not depression. Now, you can have both depression and flight, but still that flight will cause that, versus depression is no more for causing what's actual suicidal thoughts, where you have the thoughts and tendencies, if it goes too deep, to hurt yourself. So flight mode of the passive thought versus depression of the suicidal thoughts are not the same thing. So in the flight mode, what we're really saying is, I'm uncomfortable in this situation, I don't like it, and I want to get out of it. So what we really need is problem solving to figure out what's the situation, what's within our control, what can we do to deal with it, and if our emotions get too chaotic, what can we do at this very moment to cope and channel our emotions so we can face the real life problem after we get through our emotions and obtain more reasonable processing and thinking to solve the real problem that's around us in the world, or financially or digitally or whatever. But we need to get through the moment of our flight mode to survive it. And that's where I did the journaling when I wrote these books. So I give examples in here of my flight mode of what I wrote. In this flight mode, again for me, I was quick to realize that this time it's because I'm tired. That said, I went on to problem solve and say, I'm going into problem solve to determine when I can fit a nap in each day instead of going to caffeine. One thing I notice is that for me, it comes around 10 a.m. It also comes around midday, so I'm going to start with reducing caffeine and instead taking a nap some of my non-work hours. Okay, so we're all told we need to rest and get good amounts of sleep. We know a lot of doctors are telling us we don't get enough sleep, we need more sleep to be healthy. Well, not getting enough sleep and running too much on caffeine can also cause you to cause being on the caffeine and a lack of sleep cause your mind to go unstable, that causes you to go into the flight or fight. And this is the willing to die and desire to die. If it's not depression and suicide, it's passive flight mode. That's a You want to throw it in the spiritual air that somehow, whether it's a hurricane or whatever, will take you under, but you don't really want to hurt yourself. And the real thing is, you want out of the situation because you're not comfortable dealing with it. So this flight mode, we need to identify that we are in a flight mode. My flights were always started with the thought, I want to die. So once you realize that, you need to go into problem solving to say, what is the real situation I'm in? Why am I uncomfortable? And how can I solve the problem or better handle the situation? But if you can't think rationally at that point, you have to start with journaling or doing coloring so you carry a coloring book with you and some markers or crayons, some kind of arts and crafts in a journal, just to process your thoughts. Like I call it vomiting on paper. It's my personal diary. It's not what I write as books, but in there, I just spill out all kinds of things I'm feeling. And if I'm mad at the feelings, I'll pour out the sheet of paper out of my journal, crumble it, shred it, and then do whatever to throw it down the trash and get the frustration out. But then I go to actually deal with the real situation that was why I got that flight mode and what triggered me. So that's where we need to go with this. We got through the understanding the situation and our overall health. Now I gotta go down to the flight mode. Get through the flight mode. Get through with finding out your real situation, what triggered you, and you have to even identify that you are in flight. And I had to work with my therapist for a long time to realize that when I say I want to die, and that's what my brain says it to me, like a whisper in my brain, I didn't understand that it wasn't suicide. And I had to work with her to understand that. And that's where, over a course of so many months working with her, I eventually picked up that there was a difference between flight of wanting to be out of the situation or get through it and actual depression and suicide. So that was something that I had to discover. You have to discover what is flight for you. What do you think, feel, or have an urge to do when something triggers you to have a low mood of discouragement, sadness, and just wanting out of whatever's the situation? What are those thoughts? What's that trigger? What's that person, place? What do those people or place or things have in common? Um, like later on, we'll talk about where I figured out a certain period of time in history that was a 10-year long financial crisis I had. But I realized everything from not liking the books that were released back then, even though I'm a diligent reader, or not wanting to listen to music that was made back then, or not wanting to watch TV shows that was made back then, all this had to do with the trauma of that decade. There's a 10-year long trauma I went through. And so you have to realize and look within yourself. And this takes time, it takes journaling, it takes reflecting on yourself, it takes talking to your therapist, all kinds of things. Go to all different friends, family, whoever you can trust and count on to tell you the truth, that's truly honest and cares about you, whether it's from a professional standpoint like a therapist, or it's from personal life like a friend or neighbor or family member. If you work as well, you could even talk to coworkers you trust, or like close best friends kind of coworkers, but not just ones that you know and you work with, but they don't really know you as a person, as a friend, a business friend, okay? Because you don't want to expand your emotions to the wrong people to detriment your job, career, financial well being, or anything else. So you have to be careful who you release it to. But still, talk to those people, do your own journaling, and determine what is flight mode to you and what are the signs of how you can figure out how you're in it and that you're in it. And then we'll go on to the next thing with what to do once you're in it, or once you realize the sign to know that you're entering it at whatever point. So then I carried on with my realization that when I get those, at least this particular time in October 24th, I got that thought, I want to die, and I realized I was actually tired. And so being tired and not getting enough sleep was one thing that caused me to have the flight. So I problem solved that by putting naps in my day schedule. Different times I'm not working, I'm napping now. So I have breaks in my day instead of just working a straight, 8 or 10 hours through the day. But I also went on to say relaxing can at times be sleeping, laying down, or reclining with the opportunity to fall asleep in the event sleep is needed. For me, relaxing is time to not think and rest my mind. I'm also thinking about moving my morning alarm out by 15 or 30 minutes later. Then when it is set to wake then when it is already set to wake me up. Why? Because I felt I could take a little bit more sleep if that's my nighttime, and that's pushing it later in the day by 15 or 30 extra minutes to sleep in the morning. And for me, that's a reflection on I'm tired when I wake up before the certain time. So if I go to bed that's 9 or 10 hours before that certain time, I function better with a late night than I do with the early morning of the typical people that wake up on a 4:30 or 5 for an 8 to 5 job. Like on that, if I try to wake up those kind of hours, it doesn't work for me. I actually get those thoughts still when I wake in those hours. Um, but you could have a different system where you do better as a nighttime worker, an overnight job, or late night job. And you could also be at the same time where you're on the other end. You have a late night or overnight job, but you do better with a daytime or morning job. And there are kinds of professions where, whether it's your actual personal schedule and you're on disability or it's your work schedule, you could change jobs, you could change hobbies, you could change your schedule of when you do which. That's within your control. Like, for example, I tried for a while for my gym workouts to be in the afternoon or evening between 5 and 6, or at the latest of 7 to 8, based off what time my gym has certain classes I like to attend. And I found with that, I had more energy at night than I already do, but I had a lot less energy the next morning than I did working out in the morning the prior week and month. So I found out working out in the morning, even though it's hard to get myself up to get to the gym, if I do that, the workout generates the energy I need for that morning to go through my work and morning routine and other things I have to get done that day. So those are where we need to look at what is personal to our situation, to us personally, that is what's best for us. When you look at that, you can find what is the best lifestyle, life routine, schedule, types of activities. Let's say you want to have time to socialize with friends, you want to have time to go to church or another religious group, and you want to have time to do a study that's during the week and not just on the Sabbath day. Um, but you want to get those different things you want in a system that works for you. Like for me, there's a while that I could not get up early enough to go to church on Sundays. So I went to Wednesday night service, but not Sunday morning service. But that was still, it wasn't that spiritually I did wrong. It was that I did what worked best for me, that was diligent to my faith and diligent to my health, that was on the schedule. I functioned better with a later day than a earlier day. So you have to go with what works for you. And this is where a lot of times people who have mental illnesses are also business owners or contractors, because we can make our own schedule with those kinds of jobs and juggle it in the way that best fits for us to be at our best performance. But that goes down the avenue of the career coaching. That's another thing I do. But anyways, those are just ideas of ways that you can look at your flight mode. When does it happen? What triggers it? And you're going to actually technically find that there's a lot of different flight mode triggers, but we're dealing with just step one of identifying wherever you are at this moment. If you're in a flight mode, what caused it right now? What are you in? What's the situation? And then journal, color pictures, maybe read a magazine, read a book, do something to get yourself through this flight mode so you get to the other side safely. And then you'll go on to deal with the actual problem or situation that's what triggered your flight mode. And that's where we get into the next thing of problem solving. All right, let's see if you can see this. Okay, now we're at the point of problem solving. With problem solving, this can have to do with either fight or flight. But either way, we're identifying understanding situation, flight mode, and problem solving. Even if you are in the fight mode, that's where you get raged as opposed to going under and feeling like you want to escape, okay? That problem solving is a key once you get through the moment to get out of that state with the journaling, coloring in a coloring book, reading magazine, reading a book, something that's uplifting to you, but also releases your emotion out. So once you get through that, then the problem solving is at the real situation that triggered that fight or flight mode. And solving that problem, mind problem solving, was an example I gave with getting the thoughts and the flight mode. When I'm tired during the day, I had problem to solve. Well, how can I not be tired? So it meant changing my routine, as I discussed. It made putting breaks in to rather lay in a recliner to rest my mind or to have a timer to take a nap sometime in my day. But also, I found with the problem solving, in my case, stress was often something that gave me the flight mode and the thought. So I had to go with problem solving to say, well, what can I do to handle stress? Because stress caused flight mode. So yes, I need to deal with flight mode, but I needed to, in that case, go deal with stress to stop causing the flight mode. And that's where you have to look at the cause and effect symptoms and situation of your personal situations that trigger what's the situation that triggers the fight mode or flight mode, and what can you do to problem solve so you can try to do better balance of having a healthy lifestyle for yourself, lifestyle, routine, habits, more often coping and the right type of coping skills and methods that work for you to problem solve that to make your next day better and try it. It's like a trial and error. You have to try a certain routine for a week and then see how it works and keep a personal diary or journal noting about it, like in a calendar that you use for personal documentation of when you have what kind of episodes and when you consume caffeine and anything else. Like it's a diary, but say it's a really a calendar or planner we buy for school. But on your dates, you put any episodes or issues you had, as opposed to the journal that's typically where we write on a bunch of lines, whatever we have pleasure to let out of our system. So those are two different ways to do it. And when you're doing the problem solving, you go use that planner and document any issues you have, whether it's fight, flight, anxiety, depression, whatever, on each day, and with that change in the routine that you think makes it better for you, or the change in the job, or the change in, there's so many things you can look at, but the situation could be anything from a job to unexpected things like a car wreck because you're driving, to you love your job, but you now got somebody you have to deal with that's not so great to deal with and you don't get along with. Um, there's all kinds of ways to solve it because if it's somebody at work, you can talk to the person or try to talk to someone as a supervisor to get help in the situation, voicing that situation is bothering you or it's hard to deal with them or whatever it is, to reach out to different people who can try to help you with that problem. Or other things you can do on your own that's setting a new routine to sleep later in the day, like I did, and to have an evening job instead of a daytime job. But you have to go with the problem solving. What is it that often causes your flight? And understanding the real situation that you're dealing with PTSD and all that I gave, but to problem solve it and say, what can you do so you can try to prevent yourself from having these anymore? And it will not go away in this one moment. This is a trial and error of these 3 steps we're going to start with today, of looking at this current moment. And you can even watch this video a million times if you want, but whatever is that moment, whether it's today, tomorrow, later today, or I know a year from now, in that moment, these are the steps you go through to solve that problem in a way that the problem solving approach and step is to try to resolve it in a preventive and controlling way so you do not get those episodes as often, or that certain factor that caused it, and you can deal with, you can do your best to avoid by making changes in the different factors of life, whether it's job, routine, schedule, work days, needing time off work, or changing careers. There's all kinds of things it can be. But those are the basic steps to every single time you have the flight mode, you have to do this. The fight is very similar. The fight is when you're on the up end and you're like, I just want to fight somebody. Flight is when you're on the low end and you're like, want to hide out or get out of the situation or escape in some way. But we're near the end of today's episode. I'm going to check on YouTube any moment now to see if we have any comments or feedback or questions. Feel free to leave any comments or suggestions or questions, anything, and I'll make time to look at my YouTube channel to see what all y'all have voiced and try to add that to help make this lecture a little bit more personal to people who leave comments and feedback so I can better be there to help all of you and not just some of you that follow really close to mine, but they're different. And the diversity of all of us within um, that have PTSD and mental illnesses, there's a diversity within us. And I want to understand that diversity and be there to help as many of you as possible, looking at those reviews and feedback and everything else you leave, comments, whatever else. Thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.